want to bring back Tre Lovell to talk more about and kind of piggyback on what Ashley was saying about the jury and the responsibility of this jury. They do become really close with the judge. I mean, if they need a bathroom break, if they have vertigo, as one juror had and couldn't come to court that day, the judge is their friend. What will the instructions be from the judge as this jury parts, as the judge also now considers the task at hand, sentencing and a possible bail for Diddy?
Well, the judge is going to want to protect the jury. This is a high-profile, powerful case. There will be some anonymity, with the jurors. He wants to protect them. But I also wanted to bring up a couple of things. I love Ashley. I've been on her show a couple of times talking about my own cases that I've been handling. But Ashley, kind of the counter argument to some of the things she was saying, for example, with the bribery charge. The fact that he was paying for the video at the hotel. Well, at the time, there was no crime that was being charged or looked at or investigated. It was more a kind of a catch and kill type scenario where, hey, we're worried about Diddy's brand, about Diddy getting embarrassed out there. So let's just get a hold of that videotape. So it could be kind of an alternative to whether it was bribery or just a catch and kill. And I think one of the things that the jury must have hung their hat on is that in terms of consent. So there were moments when Cassie and Jane didn't want to do the freak-offs. They obviously didn't want to do it. But, at the same time, they consented overall to the relationship, taking the good or the bad. Sometimes, couples, who are going to have sex, maybe one may not be in the mood, but they do it anyway because, they want to make the other feel better. But they consented overall to the relationship. I think that's probably the distinction the jury had about this in terms of, hey, there were times, yes, they didn't want to do it. But, they still had consented because they wanted to appease Diddy, or they loved him and they didn't want to wanted to still be the girlfriend, etc. So I think there are distinctions that can be made. Ashley makes great points, but I think you can kind of water that a couple of different ways.
All right. I got two new things to pass along from the judge. One, the judge says he will be making a decision on whether Diddy will be released on bond, and that's before sentencing, which I do believe we know, but now has set a 1 p.m. deadline for letters from both sides arguing their case. So a couple hours from now, you've got to imagine both legal teams are scrambling to put together their arguments. First, from the prosecution, what will they say to the judge to convince them no bail, no bond, and maximum sentence?
So the prosecution would say, hey, he's been convicted of 2 counts, up to 20 years, each for 10 if they get the maximum. He could be a flight risk. He's got a lot of money. He's going to jail or prison either way. No need to let him out on bail. The chances of a successful appeal are slight. He can worry about that down the road. You need to keep him in custody. The defense is going to say, Your Honor, he's not a flight risk. We can put a bond package together that will meet this court's. We can have a high bond. We can put other restraints if this court feels necessary. We can do whatever this court wants, to feel comfortable. He's not going to go anywhere. He's not going to be a flight risk, and to allow him out, pending appeal. Plus, he survived the great majority of this indictment. The highest charges, the worst charges were found. He was acquitted from. Even though he has been convicted of these 2, they're not as serious. And thus, there's really no reason for him to remain in custody. He's not a flight risk, and the bond package can be sufficient. You should let him out.
What about, and would this be part of the defense's strategy, his treatment where he currently is? Okay, you're not going to let him out on bond, but we want him transferred, and here's where we want him to go, and here's why. Would that be a consideration?
That could be a consideration, but oftentimes it's the Bureau of Prisons that decides that, and not necessarily the judge. Surprisingly, the judge doesn't have a lot of control, necessarily where somebody's incarcerated. They can make recommendations. They can try to have some influence, but it's really the Bureau of Prisons that would decide that. And so, I'm certain that the parties will bring that up as well, because where you're going to be incarcerated can be a huge difference. But I don't think the judge has a whole lot of power when it comes to that.
Okay. Tre Lovell, thank you.